morning, intrepid readers. So I didn't feel like wearing earphones today. I hope that the sound is still okay. And I'm so excited to be here and talking to you all, but I'm a little sad because I think there's only maybe 4 or 5 of you that watch this per week. So I'm happy that you're here, those few of you. I would like more of you, but c'est la vie, que sera sera. What can I do besides just keep going with my video blogs? This is my blog from last week, from Sunday, which was kind of an update on a guest post that I did earlier the week before that as far as violence in literature. And so that's in my blog. If you look at my blog for this past week, there's a link to that article, that guest post, in which I did some research on violence in literature. And there's not a lot of research. There's a lot of research on violence in media, in video games or TV shows or movies or music, but not a lot as far as literature. I only could find one study done at Brigham Young University, I think. And it did indicate all of the studies. Okay, so let's backtrack. The guest post was an answer to the question from the blogger, Ashley Faye, which was, you're in this mystery thriller week. I just took part in this mystery thriller week online. It was really fun. I had a live Facebook hour. I had the guest post. I did all sorts of cool stuff. And the question she asked me was, how do you reconcile the fact that you write about death and murder with all the violence that's going on in the world today in regards to terrorism and just people being general, violent, evil douchebags? How do you reconcile the two? The fact that you write about all of this stuff, and what if what you're writing is causing, I guess the underlying question was, is what you're writing contributing to actual real violence? And it was a really interesting question, and I did some research and then came up with my own conclusions. But then this week I sort of had the same topic brought to the forefront of my mind in my own world with my oldest son. And he looks like I'm very excited because it looks like he's turning into a reader. Maybe he's not quite as obsessively psychotic about it as I am yet, but he's getting pretty into the books, which is so bitchin', so exciting for me. I can see my dad if he could look down, he'd be like, yeah, he'd be so excited for my oldest son. And so the last week we've been looking through, he's gone through all the Harry Potter books, all the Chronicles of Narnia, all the Percy Jackson books, and he was kind of looking for a new genre, a new book. And so I introduced him to Harlan Coben, my hero Harlan Coben, who started me on the Murder Mystery Tour with his Myron Bolitar series, which I love and which my father introduced to me. And so Harlan has started a young adult series starring his main character Myron's nephew, Mickey. So there's Mickey Bolitar, young adult high schooler, doing some YA stuff, which is so fun and it's so good. It's really quite good. And so I read all those 3 before I gave them to my son, and then he read them lickety-split, like boom, and he was done. And so we're waiting for the next Mickey Bolitar book. But in the meantime, what am I going to give my oldest son? He's out of books that he's ready to read. And so I gave him a standalone Harlan Coben thriller, adult thriller. Now, he's 10 years old. And obviously it was a book that I knew well and had read and reread before I gave it to him. But there's a scene, and Harlan Coben is really good. There's not a lot of swearing. It's innuendo if there's any sex. It's not, it's not graphic in any way as far as that goes. But there is violence. It's a murder mystery, just like when I write, which is somebody gets whacked in every single book. Somebody dies, and so there's a scene in the thriller that I gave my oldest son, and it's really pretty violent. It's this victim who has escaped from her captors, and one of the things she does, and this is a kind of a spoiler, but it won't ruin the whole book for you. It's called Missing You. It's a fabulous book with all sorts of twists and turns, and I highly recommend it. But anyway, so there's this scene where the captor, the victim, escapes, and one of the things she has to do to manage this escape is kill one of her captors, and she does this by cleaving his head open with an axe. So, needless to say, it's a pretty violent scene, and my son is only 10. And so, this past week, what I did was I asked one of my friends who has training in this field. I wanted his opinion. His name is Ken. He's a forensic psychiatrist at UCSD, extremely experienced, well-trained, and he has a lot of knowledge for me to partake. And so I asked him what he thought about giving my son that Harlan Coben adult thriller. And he said something really interesting that I will leave you with today to think about. He said he believes... Okay, now first of all, I don't censor books for my kids, period. My parents didn't. I don't believe in it. I really don't. I think you have to experience and learn as many things as you can so you can make your own decisions about what you think and what you believe. But I do think you should... as a parent, I'm going to be familiar with what my kids are reading and watching and doing, so I can discuss it with them, so we can converse about it, so we can decide and learn and all that stuff together. So that's why I'm asking Ken, what do you think about this scene and my son reading these things? And he said, I personally feel like it's better for kids to experience the possibilities of violence or the realities of violence in a story setting as opposed to like a violent video game. So based in reality, like with characters and a beginning, middle, end story, as opposed to here we are at Call of Duty, and the whole purpose of this screen gem is just to blow things up and people up. So he thinks that, there's this violence for the sake of it, and then there's this storyline that hopefully has a lesson and a moral and entertains us at the same time. And I just lost me. Did you just lose me? Like, my screen just disappeared altogether. Well, I'm back. I don't know what's going on with my computer. Anyway, so that was Ken's view, and I talked to my husband about it, and we kind of discussed it, and we both sort of came to the same place, which could have been sort of the place from which we started. But hey, there it is. We don't believe in censoring our kids' exposure to violence, and understand, with the caveat that we are reading it ahead of time and experiencing it and discussing it with them. But I also like the concept of anything he reads being a better tool than just a place of violence that's the sake of it, is for violence. So he's still reading the book, and he's actually getting to some really good parts. I keep asking him about it. I think I need to stop doing that, because I think he's getting bothered that I'm like, ooh, where are you now? Ooh, what's happening now? Ooh, we just found out about sugar. Wait till you see what happens with sugar. And yeah, and so he hasn't read for a day or two. He's now playing basketball because we're on a break. So we're on a winter break. So he's out doing sports, outdoors, breathing the fine San Diego air. So good for him too. Anyway, That's my blog. I would love to hear your views. Email me, or you can do that from my website, www.kelleykbowles.com. Or you can subscribe to me here on YouTube, and I'll just give you that website over and over again. So until then, stay mystified.